Hi there, I'm Anya from Peony and Time, which is a small shop for knitwear and knitting patterns. You can find me on Etsy, on Instagram, and on Facebook, all at Peony and Time. Alright, so for today's video, we are going to be going over the very final step in hand knitting your giant yarn blanket, and you guessed it, it is that dreaded task of weaving in the ends. I don't know why it's so annoying, but we just really all tend to hate it. So, the good news is that there is a really simple way to make those ends really disappear, and it really doesn't take that long. Yeah, so I researched several different methods for taking care of those ends with the giant yarn. I talked to several people who have done this before and knew what they were talking about, and then I just did some trial and error to find what worked best for me, because obviously when you're dealing with yarn that is this large, you're not going to be able to deal with it just like you would with regular sized yarn, because if you just woven this end just like this, it's so large that one, either it's going to look really bulky and really noticeable, or two, even if you are able to weave it in so that it's not really that noticeable, after you start working with it a lot, maybe like, you know, you're just pulling it and cuddling with it on the couch, it's going to be really a lot more likely with yarn this size that that end's going to pop out, and none of us want that. So annoying. So anyhow, I'm going to go over a really pretty simple, easy method for making those ends just disappear. Alright, let's get right to it. Alright, so first off, I thought it would be helpful to maybe go over what comes in a felting kit from Sarah over at Mama Knows Luxury. So this is just like a nice piece of styrofoam that you can felt on top of. And so this is your felting needle, and then these are just the spare needles for that. Right, so the thing with the felting needle is that they have a lot, I'm sure you can really see it here. They have several tiny barbs along the end of the needle there, and that is just going to help move the fibers more and help get your two pieces of yarn to really mesh together into one piece. So just in case you had any confusion about how to actually use these, because I opened up this kit and I was like, okay, here are the spare needles I see, here is the felting needle itself, but like how the heck am I supposed to put one of these needles in there? So what you do, this is just a little peg that's inserted in the handle, just pop that right out, and look, there's a needle right there for you. So then you just kind of pry this out of that groove and then flip this around, because the smaller end of the peg is what's going to go into the top of this handle here. So you put this base bottom there, lay that into the groove, and then pop that back in there, and then the pressure from the peg is going to make that nice and secure in there. So then see, you have your nice felting needle right here. Yeah, and then you are in business. Okay, so I'm going to set that right down there. Another important thing, very important, these thumb and finger protectors. You can see one's a little bit bigger, so that's a good size for your thumb. And then this one's a little bit longer and a little more slender. That is a great size for your index finger. Okay guys, these are really important because as you can see here, these needles are pretty sharp. And if you're getting carried away, just really focused on getting that nicely felted, it can be really easy to accidentally stab your finger, and nobody wants that. So use the finger protectors, and then do whatever you have to, whether like if you have to make a fist with the rest of your fingers so that you don't accidentally start using them. Yeah, just when you're felting, you only have these two fingers on your left hand, or your right hand, depending on if you're a lefty. Alright, so let's go ahead and get started with the felting process. Alright, so you can see the end of my blanket right here. So this just pops right out. And like we said before, you know, like with normal sized yarn, we would just maybe tie a little knot, or maybe just weave this in several times back and forth over several stitches. But just because this is so large, if you did that, it's really going to show. It's going to be really bulky looking, and then probably just because this is so large, this is going to end up working itself out and popping out at some point. And you definitely don't want that happening. So what we're actually going to do is just weave this in around a few stitches, and then using our felting kit, we're just going to felt it into place so that this will kind of fuse together with some of these. Alright guys, so I just had something really crazy happen, and my camera just spontaneously decided to stop recording while I was about halfway through with this tutorial. So unfortunately I didn't notice it until I had already had the end all felted in, so I'm just going to kind of explain to you after the fact what I did. Alright, so sorry about that guys. I was wanting to be like a really helpful step-by-step, but I'll just show you. So this is the piece that I trimmed from one of the sides. I left it, so it was actually like about this long. about this long of an end hanging off of there. And then what I found it helpful to do, there are different methods. You can like separate this into different pieces, but what I did was just to thin this out gently, just pull this apart to make it a lot thinner. That way when you weave it in, there isn't just like a crazy amount of bulk in one place. Because obviously when you're dealing with yarn that is this thick, that could be a problem. Alright, so that it's nice and thin there, you can see just like that. And then I just sort of pulled some of these end pieces out just a little bit so that it isn't just like one bulky end that just suddenly stops. You can kind of just thin that out a little bit so that it'll be just a little bit easier to make that end disappear. All right, so we've thinned that out just a little bit. So again, I'm so sorry. I just thought I had this all recorded. Goofy camera. So we're gonna pretend that this was your end coming out right here. And so all I did was to take this fan out and like this, and then just pop it down through there, and then back and forth just a few times right at the base here. That way you still have these stitches on top that look like the perfectly finished ends, but it's also not getting up into your pattern here. So that's a really nice place just to kind of tuck it in. I went in about, let's see, about 3 stitches, and then this was the very end of it right here. Okay, and so at that point, you want to pull out your really handy little leather finger protectors. And then at this point, take this nice piece of styrofoam, put it right underneath the section that you're going to be felting on, because this is just going to be protecting your needle and then whatever is on your floor or your table, because the needle is going to go through here and stab right into the styrofoam. Okay, so you're just going to start gently doing the felting process all along here where you wove this end in. That way it isn't just dependent on how well you felt that very end. It's going to be giving it the support and strength to stay in place all along where it's been woven there. Okay, so again, you want to just make sure you can maybe grab those fingers into a fist or whatever you need to do to just keep them out of the way, because it is shockingly easy to just start grabbing and then accidentally stab your finger, and nobody wants that. Okay, also another note is you're going to want to just be kind of gauging as you go how much you actually want to felt this, because you want to felt it enough that the fibers really are going to stick together, but not so much that it just gets rock hard. So I started weaving in the end right here. So hold these fingers out of the way, just kind of hold that securely in place, and you're just going to kind of gently stab right where that end is. And you're going to kind of move the needle around just a little bit so that you're not just getting it in one place. Like I said, the barbs on this needle are going to be grabbing the fibers and pulling them, getting them all tangled up with the fibers of the other piece of yarn. So you want to just be moving around so you can get that in as many spots as possible. So we're just going to continue moving down, kind of weaving back and forth just a little bit. And this does definitely leave a mark, so I'm not going to do it too much like right on top of there, just because for one thing, we didn't weave the end right in along there, and another thing, we want to leave this kind of as unmarked looking as possible, because we can work it a little bit afterwards with our hands to kind of get rid of some of those holes, but they may not completely disappear, so we'll just try to keep it as clean looking as possible. Okay, and then here's our end. So I'm just going to kind of hold it in place there with my protective finger. Stab that in a little bit, work the needle around. Okay, so that's looking pretty good. So I'm going to go ahead and flip this over. Some of the fibers stuck to the styrofoam there. Just going to flip that over and then just work that a little bit from the other side. So as you can see here, this does have some holes in there already because, like I said, obviously I had already worked this all in and thought I was recording. Anyhow, so again, you can see just kind of working that needle around so that you're getting fibers from as many angles as possible. Looking good. You can use your fingers to kind of hold that in place so that you know you're getting it fused just where you want it. Help it along just a little bit down here. Again, like I said, so it's not just dependent just on the end there. So it's looking pretty good there. If I stretch that, it's not coming out. You can still see the end there just a little bit. All right, so at this point it is pretty well fused, and you can see there are a few of these just little holes. I'm gonna work that just a little bit with my hands just to try to minimize the appearance of those holes. Look how good that's looking though. Like seriously, to just have that end woven in and just disappear like that is pretty cool. Okay. Alright, so thank you so much for watching. As always, if you have any questions, anything that wasn't quite clear enough, please feel free to leave me a note in the comments. I'll try to clear that up for you if I can. So we only have one more video in this series about hand knitting a blanket with giant yarn, and that is going to be on felting the finished product. So we are actually going to be taking this whole finished blanket and putting it in the washing machine and have some instructions for how to make that felt up a little bit. It's a little bit scary because I love my blanket so much, and you know, once the felting is done, you can't undo the felting. But we will be going over that process step by step, and you can learn right along with me, and I'm really excited. It should be great. And then after that's done felting, it's just going to be even tougher, and so we'll extend the life of it a little bit. So we'll be going over, step by step, how to felt that, and then some little tips and tricks for things that you can do afterwards to just achieve just the look that you want. Okay, so I hope you guys all have a wonderful week, and I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.